We're magnificent beings. And we don't see that because we equate our value with our behaviors. So if we can see the magnificence of our own existence, that we're magnificent just because we exist, then we can see who and what we are in a different light and be less inclined to behave, in a way that hurts people.
If your continuing search for answers has led you nowhere, you will find the truth here on the Forbidden Doctor podcast. Seek the truth with your hosts, Dr. Jack and Mary Stockwell.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jack.
And Mary.
And we are here with podcast episode number 96, Forbidden Forgiveness Revisited. What you're looking at here, if you're following on our webinar, is a very imposing picture of two gentlemen from Rwanda. One is a Hutu, the other one is a Tutsi. And if you remember a little over 2 decades ago, the horrible slaughter that took place in Rwanda, where anywhere from 800,000 to 1 million of the Tutus were slaughtered by the Tutsis were slaughtered by the Hutus.
Mm-hmm. And these were their neighbors.
Neighbors, for crying out loud.
Sometimes friends.
Living next door, working with one another, but two different religious groups. And so what's happened to them? 22 years later, what's happened to the Hutu and the Tutsi?
And how did they get to a place of reconciliation?
Yes, that's what we're going to talk about.
This is an amazing story.
I love the William Blake quote. It is easier to forgive an enemy than to forgive a friend.
Because these were their friends and their neighbors.
So you can hear me, those of you are familiar with my radio show. Those of you who aren't, I do live national radio every Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on the Doug Stephan Good Day Show. It's replayed again Saturday mornings, 6 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. You'll have to figure out what your time zone is. If you're not familiar with this and you would like to hear the live show or the replay, you just go to radioamerica.com and select Doug Stephan, and then you can find out what the radio stations in your area might be. If you can't find a radio station that carries his program, just at radioamerica.com during those time periods, 7 a.m. Mountain Standard on Tuesday, 6 a.m. Mountain Standard on Saturday, you can hear it over the internet through radioamerica.com. And we cover a lot of different health topics every week.
And for you here in Utah, because we have a lot of listeners in Utah, you can hear Dr. Jack again on KTKK AM 630 at 6 a.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Utah on the radio. Don't forget to take our free symptom survey. Go to our website, forbiddendoctor.com, and take our free survey. It's a $150 value. After you've taken the survey, you can sign in with your username and password at forbiddendoctor.com, and you'll see your personalized protocol sitting there waiting for you. You'll also have access to over 600 plus protocols from which you can search any symptom in the world. For example, you can just type in depression, because we're talking about forgiveness here. So that might be a good topic to search for. Just type in depression in the search box and up pops the protocol for depression. So tell your family, tell your friends. If you're not already a member of our website, the only way to see these protocols on our website is to take our Forbidden Doctor symptom survey at forbiddendoctor.com. And don't forget to join our texting blast. We just had a huge amount join us since we've started telling people to do this. They got in on a really incredible Black Friday sale. So there'll be new coupons every single week on this texting blast. And so you just type in healthy or text the word healthy to 41411. So where you'd normally put the phone number, put the numbers 41411, and then just type the word healthy where you would normally type a text to someone.
So this webinar podcast is not intended to be a diversion away from the current system of disease management. It is our intention to offer a rational and very effective approach to aiding your body in its ability to rebuild and heal. So if you're having a real crisis, you get to the ER as soon as possible. Do not pass go. Do not call our office. Just go.
Okay, here is our weekly feature, Forbidden Secrets They Don't Want You to Know. These are the secret things they keep from you, the dumb things they tell you, and the really important things they know nothing about.
So I was just answering some patient emails the other day, and I sent this as a text out to the crew, our crew. And this came in. This patient asked a question about SVTs, which are supraventricular tachycardia. It's just the heart speeding up faster than it should be.
Super.
And it's something that, we would normally suggest organically bound minerals from Standard Process, as well as some Cataplex G.
And to come in and get a heart sound recorder.
That wouldn't hurt at all. And we're offering that for free. We have a podcast on the heart sound recorder, in fact. But the organically bound minerals are food-based minerals locked up with a protein structure so your body absorbs it immediately. And it's just loaded with potassium. And almost invariably, when you're having a heart that's racing, if you can get some potassium in there, your heart will start to slow down a bit.
And then some B vitamins to feed the nerves.
And that's what the Cataplex G are the B vitamins that slow things down. But the reason I sent this to the crew was this was the medical answer. And if I remember right, this came from WebMD. Treatment for sudden onset acute episodes of when episodes of supraventricular tachycardia, SVT, start suddenly and cause symptoms, you can try vagal maneuvers such as gagging, holding your breath, and bearing down, and then the Valsalva maneuver like you're having a difficult bowel movement. Immersing your face in ice cold water.
Okay, then.
And diving. And I suggest you do that with where pearl encruster.
Dive where the pearls are.
The oysters that have the pearls. Dive where they are. Or you can just, get some potassium in the body.
Yeah,
or you can gag and throw your face into cold water.
This was shocking.
I loved it. It was beautiful.
The things they tell you and the things they know nothing about. So again, I go back to we don't have healers. And then I had to throw in another one. This is a article I got, I think, from CNN. Yes, I did, CNN. There was a perfect storm down in Australia, and it killed 3 people. These 3 beautiful people right here are not alive anymore.
So this quote here, people with hay fever are particularly at risk, Newbegin said.
That's a doctor.
He advised them to better manage their hay fever during the pollen season by using antihistamines, eye drops, and other medications. You got to love that. They just manage it. Do a better job of managing.
And he also said they are much less likely to trigger it if there's good underlying asthma control. In other words, not asthma healing or not figuring out why so many thousands, if not billions, millions of people have asthma now that we never had that. In the 1950s when you were born, I was born in the 60s, I didn't know anybody with asthma. So these 3 people are dead because they were not allowed to know how to heal themselves.
Boy, have we got a good one today. Well, they're all good.
This is just a bonus one.
This is kind of a bonus one. In fact, this may be showing up on something other than our regularly released program. We don't know yet. But we have had so much response to podcast number 16, Forbidden Forgiveness, or the 5-Minute Forgiveness Cure, that we are revisiting the subject because of all the emails and the texts that we've received, where it's just very difficult for people to understand the basic concept that you're trying to get to.
Well, it's easy when you're sitting in front of somebody, but we don't have anybody here asking questions. So I just kind of spit out my little 5-minute forgiveness cure that I normally do. But when I'm one-on-one with a patient or even a friend, it comes across so much better.
Yes. Well, I've seen through the window in our office when you're in a room with a patient, and sometimes most patients just straight nutritional counseling, but every now and then you kind of get into this because they open the door for it.
They start bawling.
And they start crying.
Yeah.
And then they start laughing.
Yeah. By the end, they're
laughing.
We're always laughing.
They're laughing that they have carried such a burden they don't need to carry.
I don't remember if I talked about this on the last one. And by the way, you do need to go listen to number 16.
If you haven't heard it, you should.
Because I'm not going to repeat the whole thing.
You should probably stop this now and go listen to number 16
first. Yeah, because it won't make sense if you don't. But did I talk about the suicidal man that came into our office years ago?
I don't think so. But boy, do I remember him.
Yeah, he started laughing and laughing and laughing. And
it was a father who I can't remember if the father was a patient of mine or not, but he brought in his son because his son had just tried to kill himself, and he was afraid his son was going to try and do it again, And he thought somehow in our clinic, which does not deal with suicide.
Well, but we had been doing the relationship
But we have been
show.
doing this kind of a topic on the regular weekly radio broadcast in Salt Lake City that I did for 20 years. You've done it for 15 with me. Mm-hmm. And he thought somehow you might be able to help. So this is a great story.
Yeah, because our premise for that was if each one of you in a marriage aren't healthy emotionally, then you can't have a good marriage. It wasn't really about how to get along in a relationship. It was about each individual soul being healthy. Just like your kidney needs to be healthy and your liver needs to be healthy in order for your whole body to work together as one.
Yes.
So this man came in, young man, and he had told me after that he was planning on committing suicide the next week. And he had been to counseling for years. His father, of course, loved him to death and was sending him counseling, paying for everything. He had been on and off all the drugs. He'd been doing everything. He finally just was so depressed. He finally just decided he was going to do that. And he came in and he told me that. He said, I'm suicidal. And I said, okay. And he kept saying, but I'm going to kill myself. And I said, okay. I don't know. That might be the best thing for you.
Wow.
How can I know that?
Well, our society immediately has a stop at that point. No, there is absolutely no excuse whatsoever for that.
Yeah. I was like, no. If that's you're the God of your body. You're the God of you. And that might just be the best thing for you. I don't know. I'm sure you've explored every other reason to not do it ad nauseum. I'm sure everybody's told you, all the little things they say.
Oh, you're going to hurt everybody that's left
everybody
alive. You're going to send your soul to hell.
Well, there's that
or
too.
Purgatory or something
Yeah,
where
scare
you're going
them out of it.
You're going to, as soon as
That'll
you
work.
get on the other side, if there is another side, you're going to go, oh no, what did I do that for? Oh shoot, can I have another chance? All the different kinds of logics
things
that have been thrown
And
at it.
I simply validated him. I simply made him appear. I simply said, okay, that sounds great. Whatever you decide, that might be the best thing for you. And he just sat there, and I don't remember what we talked about because this was like 7 years ago, but we talked and talked, about different things. But basically, we just started laughing. He says, nobody said that to me.
Well, I suppose not.
Nobody has. All the money we've spent, all the counseling, all the books I've read, all the tears from my mother and my father.
No, yes.
Nobody's ever said, okay.
All right.
And I said, nobody's validated you in this? You have a really good reason for doing this or wanting to do this. I applaud you. I applaud you for being you. And his mouth just dropped open. He couldn't even talk. And then we just chit-chatted and we started laughing. And he said, no, nobody's ever done this. He kept saying that over and over again. And by the end, he was laughing. His father kept peeking in the window, because we have windows in all our exam rooms. And anyway, we just finally walked out. Well, a year later, he came rushing into our clinic holding the hand of a girl. And he says, look, I'm getting engaged.
Aww.
And he brought the girl in and he says, this is the woman that saved my life.
He said that to her about you.
Yeah. He pointed to me. He said, because she let me kill myself. And I said, no, I let you be you.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on in somebody else's head, and everybody.
We think we do.
But we do know what's going on in our head.
Yes.
In fact, we have all the answers in our head. How could we not? Everything we think is the perfect thought for us. How could it be anything else? It's the perfect one for us. You can't understand the way I'm thinking. I can't understand the way you're thinking. But every thought for me is perfect. Because how can I be smarter than I am?
Well, how can you be anything other than what you are?
If I don't know it, I don't know it.
You can go take some classes and maybe get smarter at painting or childbirth or something. But in this moment right now, you can't be smarter than you are.
Yeah, Yeah, you're looking into
You
the
get
future.
some more, you get some knowledge.
I can get educated.
But in this moment, you can't be any smarter or intelligent or wiser or anything than you are in this very moment.
So we got a letter, an email, and it was a beautiful email because it completely, perfectly personifies the question I get every single time. And I should have addressed it better, I think. But again, I didn't have somebody sitting in front of me that was struggling with this, because you've heard me say this a million times.
Yes.
But honestly, if you make people think they're thinking, they'll love you. But if you really make them think, they'll hate you.
Yes, because when you really think, you have to question all your basic propositions. All the pillars that your personal philosophy is based on. When somebody makes you really think about something, you have to re-examine them. You may validate it and accept them, but it's uncomfortable to examine your basic propositions.
Because there's nothing in life so hard as letting go of what you thought was true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The most difficult thing in life is that, to let go of something you once thought was true.
Yeah. So the hardest thing to repent of is a sin you believe is a virtue. So
Yes, a philosopher once made a comment to that effect, that we would be surprised if, speaking on behalf of the Lord, I don't know whether he was or not, but to something to the effect that we would be very surprised to find out that some of our sins we worry about, God hardly winks at, but some of the things we think are our greatest virtues, he considers our greatest sins. And so with that idea in mind, would you repeat that quote one more time? The hardest thing?
let's see. The hardest thing to repent of is the sin you believe is a virtue.
Right.
That's from Paul.
Right. Oh, Paul said that?
Yeah,
Okay.
our good friend
Our
Paul.
good friend Paul.
Yeah. The hardest thing to repent of is the sin you believe is a virtue.
Yeah, because our lives are based on what we perceive to be our virtues.
Well,
that's
the
where
basic one, forgive, just forgive.
And that's what
Mary.
we're going to be talking about here.
Just simply forgive. What is the matter with you?
Forgive and forget. Move on.
Yeah, well, that's worked out really well. Okay, so we got a letter. Jack's going to read it.
This is from James. And James is a longtime fan of our old relationship show as well as the regular radio show, Health Show. And he heard podcast number 16, Forbidden Forgiveness. And like you said a few moments ago, he came away with a lot of conclusions in his mind that a lot of people do, that misunderstand the difference between understanding something and forgiving something. And there's a big difference between the two, because forgiving something without understanding why is force.
Yeah, it's fake.
And it's fake.
It's a fakery.
It's a fake. And I'm going to refer just for a moment here before I read this letter to the book of Romans, where Paul is writing the letter to the Romans. And there's that one quote in there, and it's the same thing. He experienced the same thing with the Romans, the early Christians in Rome, when he was telling them that God's grace came because of sin. And if God's grace came because of sin, why don't we just sin a whole lot more so we can have a whole lot more grace? In other words, if God forgives you...
As if sinning's fun.
Well, that's it. There's consequences to this. There's terrible consequences when you hurt people, when you sin against people. So Paul is using that basic tautology there to try to teach these people something about, no. You misunderstand the concept of what really grace and understanding what somebody else is walking a mile in their shoes means.
That's what we're going to do.
So that's what we're going to address.
And by the end, you're going to know why there are wars on this earth. You're going to know why there's pedophilia and murders and adultery and lying and robbing and all the horrible negative things in the world. And you'll also know why there are people like Mother Teresa.
Yes.
Why there's Gandhis, why there's Jesuses, why there's your next door neighbor that you never knew.
Right. And yet there's a lot of people, when you
that
talked about
has
that
done
in
wonderful
podcast
things.
16, who come away thinking that you're saying there's no consequences to it. Go do whatever you want to do.
Well, that's the biggest criticism I get.
That's the
And
biggest criticism, and it's absolute nonsense. Well, let me take that back. It's not nonsense. It's just a misunderstanding.
It's just, when I'm going to make you think harder.
All right.
You're going
And
to probably hate me.
They're going to hate you if you make
I've
them
already
think.
had one lady that got really upset, and she's, she unsubscribed from our mailing list.
Oh, yes. All right, let me read this. Hi, Jack and Mary. I'm going to do some criticism of your last podcast, But I want you to first know that I respect you both and have learned a lot from you over the years. As for the last podcast, Mary, on Jack's radio show a couple of years back, you were talking about the same thing as far as our inability to do the wrong thing, given the moment, knowledge, and where one is. I guess mentally in that moment. So, you're saying that people who do truly evil things, such as abduct, rape, murder, torture, not to mention all the other rotten things people do to other people, are somehow excused or not bad because of the circumstances of the moment.
I do say they're not bad. You're right. But they're not excused.
They're certainly not excused.
Okay.
And now,
keep reading. Oh.
I want to interject this idea here because you're saying, you just said they're not bad. You're talking about their internal value. Because
I'm not saying they didn't do evil things.
Right, because
Not
people
at all.
think when you say this, that they're not bad after they've done something bad, that somehow what they did wasn't bad.
This is the way
and that's not what you're saying at all.
This is the way we control them in a very shallow.
Yeah. When you say that
Punishing
even the
way.
murderer isn't bad, you're talking about the basic eternal value deep inside themselves that they were born with. They may still face capital punishment. They may still face lifetime imprisonment. They still have the weightier matters of the law they have to deal with that said you don't kill people. But you're not excusing them of the crime they've done by any means.
That's all I've ever said.
I know.
Nobody
but
ever
people,
hears me.
I know, but they think
it's like I'm not here.
They
It's
think
like
that what
I'm-
you said, that in order to understand the murderer in the moment that he committed murder, that somehow understanding what he did absolves him of what he did and lets him go on his way.
That's ridiculous.
Well, of course it's ridiculous, but that's what people think you're saying. So that's what we want to try and clarify.
I'm going to clarify that.
So let me go on further here.
Okay.
Do people not have a choice to do what they do even in the head or physical space they are in at any given moment? Well, yes, they are making choices.
Keep reading, because the next line.
Should people not be held accountable for their actions? There we go.
This is where I want to scream.
Okay. Scream.
No. I want him to continue on.
Are we such victims of our own circumstances that we're just mindless reactionaries? This reminds me of the defense of many a criminal by defense attorneys stating that the perpetrator should have a lesser sentence because of their bad childhood environment.
See, he's saying that I'm saying there's no consequences.
Yes.
And he spends the rest of the letter talking about how there has to be consequences.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait, back up. I never said that. So your whole argument for the rest of the letter
is invalid because you never once said there's no consequences for what we do. Of course there's consequences.
In fact, if we truly had our value intact, we would see those consequences and die for them and want to repair them. But because we get our value ripped out of us when we do something, quote, bad or a sin, we can never look at that because we can't go there. We can't disappear. We can't.
Yes.
In our own mind. We can't disappear. We are valid in our own
So
mind.
we have to categorize them, objectify them as rotten, evil, nasty, dirty people, throw away the key.
Well, even what we did, we have to not look at it.
Yes,
we
what
can't
we've
even
done.
Really, quote, repent.
Well, what I did wasn't as bad as what they did.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Right. So that's my whole point is this would cure everything. We would be able to see it. But go ahead and keep reading.
Okay. Yes, some people have horrendous pasts. It's tragic. The psychic scars are deep and profound, but everybody knows the difference between right and wrong. We are responsible for our actions. I doubt you're saying we are not. But I have a problem with the everybody is just doing the best they can in any given moment, end quote. This is so new agey. Well, when he says it's new agey, what he's doing is objectifying you as what you're saying is not valid because it's new agey, as though there was nothing in the new age philosophy of make love, not war, and to love one another and to forgive one another and to take care of one another.
Trivializes
None of
me.
that stuff is valid.
Right.
And in the result is that it trivializes you.
It trivializes me. Things are
name calling. When you start name calling.
It's still valid to me. So you can trivialize me, and then we have another problem. So we don't deal with the main problem, which is what he was talking about here, because now we have to deal with the fact that I'm new agey.
Yeah, you must be new agey if you believe that what people do bad, they don't have to pay for it,
So he's really
which is nonsense.
But that's not what he's really saying. He's really saying that their value has been dinged. That's what he's really saying.
Then let's get into that.
Yeah.
As I write, the quote continues here, as I write this, I understand where you're coming from. Does he?
Well, I don't know. Keep reading.
The nature of reality is so mysterious. The deeper you go, the deeper and more mysterious it gets. It's the side to side with forgiveness, the benefit of the doubt, so to speak.
The facade of forgiveness? See, that's
now,
just
he
like...
says the side of forgiveness.
I know, and I wrote in facade.
Right.
Because what do you mean? Just choose that? Oh, just forgive.
Forgive and forget.
Don't think any harder than that. Let's
just forgive.
Just
forgive them for what they did.
Oh, okay. I'm being a witness to a healing. I just told her to forgive and forget, and she did. And wow, see how we can all just go on and live in love and peace? But
yes.
Wait, we're not. We're not living in love and peace. We are not. We are so not. So let's think a little bit harder and figure this out.
Well, forgiveness in that circumstance is nothing but condescension.
Yes.
You know, some elevated self-righteous position trying to grant forgiveness because you cannot truly forgive if you do not first understand. And we've got some examples of that coming up here in the horrors of Rwanda.
Yeah, it's so insulting when somebody comes up to you and says, I forgive you. I mean, don't you just feel...
I've had people...
You feel this knot in your stomach.
I know. I've had people come up to me...
And you're like, but wait, you don't understand why I did what I did, but you can't even get it across most of the time. I read this book on...
Or can you forgive me?
Yeah,
Can
I
you
hate
just
that
forgive
too.
me? Can't you just forgive me?
No, I want you to understand what I feel.
Right.
And that brings me to revenge, which I think is I'm going to get bad letters for this one. I think is a wonderful concept. I think revenge is a bringing together and the oneness of two souls, or maybe two nations, that type of thing. I need you to understand what you did to me. I need to be one with you. I don't want to punish you. I don't want to kill you. I don't want to do all these things. Yes, I may want to do that eventually.
The law may require it.
No, if I don't get understood. If I don't get understood. Now, let me give you an example. I hate to stop in the middle of this letter, but this is really important.
Okay.
In Rwanda, in 1994, I think it was.
Yes.
There was the huge massacre. Over 1 million people were slaughtered.
The Hutus were killing the Tutsis.
Yeah, let me bring up this picture here. I know everybody can't see it, but I just searched it out on on Google.
And this will be at the end of the podcast, the link.
Yeah, I'll put the link here. And it's the New York Times Magazine. And I remember this because it's so burned into my memory. And this is rough, so we might have to put an explicit on the end of this program. This is really rough. These were Hutus and Tutsis, and they slaughtered the
Hutus killed, was it almost
Tutsis.
1 million Tutsis?
Over 1 million.
Over 1 million of the Tutsis
Yeah.
with machetes.
With machetes. They didn't have guns, which have been a lot more humane, but it was machetes, and it was horrific. So please take your little children away right now and don't let them listen to this podcast. But
because if there's ever a concept of understanding and forgiveness, it would be represented in this horror.
now this really happened. Okay, this isn't anything we're making up.
No, this isn't some macabre Hollywood movie.
No, this really happened, and you have to understand this. What this article was about was years later, they made peace with these perpetrators. We'll call them perpetrators. We could call them devils. We could call them murderers,
slaughtering devils,
raping,
the Hutus.
Yeah, we could call them that. Boy, this is a tough one to understand. So you've got to think hard, because for you to come out on the other end and see them as pure and innocent, and
to see who on the other end, the people who
murderers
were murdering you and your family.
Yes.
To see them as innocent on the other end of this.
Yes, this is a big leap in evolution.
Oh, my goodness.
If you can
and this
understand...
is Central Africa we're talking about. We're not talking about enlightened Western society.
Oh, that's ridiculous. But we're all like this. We're all the same. It doesn't matter what color our skin is. So these Tutsis, this whole article was on the people that forgave, quote, forgave their perpetrators. Now, let me tell you how they forgave, okay? And I don't think they got true understanding, even still. I don't think there was complete forgiveness when this article was written. And the author even says that. You can tell from the photographs who really has forgiven or who really hasn't. Now, he uses the word forgiveness, and I don't like that word. I would rather say understanding.
Yes.
But it's tough for a perpetrator to understand what they did to another person. It's tough to ever make amends for that in this life sometimes,
When it's
especially
something this
with
horrible.
murder,
Yes.
because you can't bring the person back. You really can't make amends to the fullest
Yes.
extent, I don't think. But these people tried, which is amazing, and they didn't do it fake. And this is how they did it. This lady, Epifani Mukamusiani. Beautiful name here. She was a survivor of a man who killed her son. This is what she said. I was pleased the way he testified to the crime instead of keeping it in hiding, because it hurts if someone keeps hiding a crime he committed against you. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you see how she's able to maybe start to understand where he came from? At least he said, hey, I did this. I am so sorry. Okay? Here's another woman, Juvenile Nazbamawita. I do want to say their names. This is a perpetrator who looted and damaged her property. Her husband and sons were killed, and they killed and threw her girls in a latrine. This is what he said. I told her that I would stand by her with all the means at my disposal.
The perpetrator is saying
Yeah.
this to the survivor.
And many of these did this. They came back to the survivors and said, I will stand by you the rest of your life. You know, in a flip side, when somebody saves your life, you know, the old
You
the
owe them your
movies,
life.
you owe them their life,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
their slave forever and ever
Yes.
and ever. And that's in the flip side. That's a good thing. This is just the other side, where they did something terrible and they're trying to make up for it. Of course, they never will. But isn't this a beautiful expression of their soul?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There's another lady, Evesta Mukanyandewi. She is a survivor of a man that tried to kill her and her children. The man, his name is Godefroid, was provided with trainings how to ask for forgiveness. So this is a cool thing. There was this beautiful nonprofit, like Mother Teresa type organization that came into Rwanda and tried to teach people how to forgive.
Wow.
Yeah, to even ask for
We
forgiveness.
could use a little of that in this country.
Yeah, he was provided with trainings on how to ask for forgiveness. Just to ask for forgiveness. You understand?
You might not get it,
Yeah, but
but to have training.
this is part of the understanding.
This is a
Instead of the forgiveness,
This is a Christian country.
what Rwanda
Rwanda
is.
is a Christian. Well, they have a lot of tribal stuff there, but this is a Christian country,
Okay.
and they needed training on how to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah,
What a concept!
yeah. So she said, this lady, the survivor that tried to kill her and her children, I used to hate him. When he came to my house and knelt down before me and asked for forgiveness, I was moved by his sincerity. Now, if I cry for help, he comes to rescue me. When I face any issue, I call him.
Wow.
Now, this is forgiveness. It may not be all the way, but this is the true sense of understanding somebody else. The only way this could happen is if another person comes to you and begs for forgiveness. That's the only way you can even open up this door. And they do it in a way of, I'll listen to you while you tell me how horrible you're hurting.
Yeah, see, that doesn't come through in the interview here.
No.
What is not being said here is the discussions back and forth between them. Why did you do what you did?
No, and
This
you
is why
know
I did
there
what
was
I did.
discussions. You
Oh,
know there was wailing.
Wailing,
you
screaming.
killed my son.
Yes.
You know this wasn't a simple, oh, this is going to make me feel better if I forgive you type
Yes.
thing.
Yes, right.
No,
Right.
not when it's this much. What if the United States went to the countries where their little babies were killed? maybe innocently, collateral damage. But what if they went to them and begged their forgiveness?
For killing
and
their
then
babies.
the mothers would just bawl and wail. And when they felt like they were understood, maybe the sense of revenge to hurt the other person would be gone, to hurt America, to come and bomb America.
Yes.
What if we listened to them? Do you think...
Instead of just objectifying them as unreasonable enemies that need to be destroyed.
Crazy religious people.
And just go ahead and bomb them and bomb the schools, bomb the hospitals.
People don't do suicide bombings for no reason. And they are completely, utterly, totally justified in it, in their mind.
Oh, yeah.
In their mind.
Yeah, it's just
You can't negate that. You can't sit there and go, oh, they're brainwashed. Well, still, even if they were, in their mind, they thought it was right to do. And they're very, very angry.
Oh, yes.
Very,
Talk
very
about
angry.
commitment.
Yeah. So, okay. In other words, she said, I used to hate him. Why doesn't she hate him now? Well, maybe because he asked for forgiveness. Maybe because she was able to express what was done to her and how horrific it was.
And he understood the depth and the gravity of what he did to her.
Enough to the point she's allowing him to be by her.
Yes.
Okay?
She calls on him when she's in need.
Yeah. Here's another one. Viviani Niramana. She's a survivor of a man who killed her father and 3 brothers. He came and asked for forgiveness and built a house with a covered roof for me. Now I have granted him pardon. Things have become normal, and in my mind, I feel clear.
Again, what we don't have here is the intimate conversations that went back and forth between, why did you do this? This is where I was
What
coming
I'm saying
from.
is, do you think that's fake? Do you think that was just a fake?
To come and make all the reparations he possibly could, was he being fake in
Well,
doing
that, and I mean her forgiving him.
Oh, yes.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, now that you put a roof over my head, I guess I have to forgive you. No, I don't believe that.
Yeah. I talked about a lady that came in and saw me with her husband. Her dad had abused her when she was little. And in 5 minutes, I watched her forgive him. Now, truly, I say understand him.
Yes.
Because I think forgiveness is something we put out there to distract us. I think she understood him. She understood, because she knows her father better than, anybody else would know her father. And she could understand somewhat why he did what he did. Because I turned it around on her and I helped her understand that everything she's done, she knows why she did what she did. When she finally was able to forgive herself, and this took 5 minutes. That's why I came up with the name, 5-Minute Forgiveness Cure. When she was finally able to understand that she was pure and clean as the driven snow, and her value had not been dinged. Yes, there were terrible consequences for whatever she had done in her life, and she didn't tell me. I don't need to know those things. I said, in the moment when you did some of those things, you think back on the worst thing you've ever done. In the moment when you did it, could you have done anything else? You eventually had to make a decision, and you did. And yeah, you regretted it. Yeah, there was tremendous consequences. You can't get out of those because we live in time. But you knew why you did that. And when she forgave herself, when she gave herself grace, she was able to give it to her father because it's just a natural thing that happens. Okay? So the reason listeners are so against me saying that these people that committed horrors did not do it sinlessly or that they're still perfect and have perfect value is because they themselves don't believe that they should be forgiven. It's their own
Now this is really critical here, because
it's their own unforgiveness that smacks
they
up against
can't
this.
accept. Now say that again for me, because I'm still trying to understand this.
Well, it's their own unforgiveness that smacks
Of
up
themselves.
Of themselves.
That makes it impossible for them for you to understand what you're talking about here.
Yeah. To understand what we do when we say just forgive and you'll be better is running over the whole aspect of yourself. You're forgetting You don't understand how to forgive yourself, and yet you're supposed to forgive somebody else that you understand even less. And it doesn't truly happen. You have to understand your own soul. This is the meaning of the at-one-ment, the atonement, that coming together of your own soul. This is true peace. This is true understanding. This is true forgiveness. Because this fake stuff isn't working, is it?
Oh, no. Just leads to more anxiety.
Yeah, we're intelligent beings. Okay, but they are where they are, okay? They can't forgive themselves, and that's where they are. Do we want to call them a sinner for not forgiving themselves? I mean, wouldn't that just be cruel?
All right.
Okay, so we don't want to throw that out. I mean, even the meanest of us don't want to do that necessarily. Because they're where they are. They can't forgive themselves. And they can't be anywhere else but where they are. They are in an unforgiving state. Within their own souls. Okay?
So any act of forgiveness they do on the outside towards somebody else is just force, just a fake, just, all right, I forgive you. When deep inside, the turmoil continues to boil.
Like I said last time, you either forgive or you don't. It's not something you force yourself to do.
Right.
Okay? So they are doing exactly what they think is right. It's the best choice for them to not forgive themselves right now. So wouldn't it sound just ridiculous to say that to them, just forgive. Just forgive yourself. What's the matter with you? Just forgive yourself. How come people don't get mad at us for not forgiving ourselves? Yeah. So like I said, they either forgive or they don't. It's not something you force yourself to do. Do you want the words just to be said? I mean, that's the next logical step. Do you just need the words to be said? I forgive you. Well, sometimes that can move towards closer, better understanding, I think. But if it's closure, oh, she forgave me now. I don't need to build a house for her. I don't need to be her slave forever. I don't need to try and repair this horrible, heinous thing that I did. She forgave me. They're the ones that say there's no consequences, not me. No, that's the main point here, is there are tons of consequences.
All
okay,
right.
so let's get back to the letter.
All right, so he's saying here, still in a world where self-responsibility is neglected, avoided, and sometimes even negated, I'm bothered by non-accountability. Now, I think the only reason James would say that is because he thinks that's what you're saying. Again, people aren't accountable for what they do.
I never said that.
Well, you've never once said anything like that. But when you start granting grace to the worst offenders, in the sense that it's the same grace we would extend towards ourselves, it's almost like you're absolving them of what they've done. Okay, go on about your business. It's okay. We'll bury these people you just killed. But, go ahead. Don't kill anybody else. That's not at all what you're saying.
No, and in an eternal sense, it would be. But because we have time here, because there are consequences we can't get out of, we have to live a life without our husband that got killed, or we have to live a life with our heart broken, or we have to live a life with, I don't know, if we don't get an education.
Having been maimed.
Then we have a consequence of that, or
Yes.
being maimed, or,
The person who is paralyzed because they got hit by a drunk driver.
Yeah. After this life,
there's consequences for that.
Yeah, is that going to matter? There won't be time. It's like if you break your leg. Maybe you were doing something stupid, as people would say, and climbing up a ladder without shoes, and you slipped and you fell and you broke your leg. Okay, now people don't really think of that as a sin, but you could go, oh man, I knew better than to.
Because I did it on a Sunday.
Yeah, if
If I hadn't been doing that on a Sunday, I wouldn't have broke my leg.
Okay,
So
that's
now
kind
I
of
sinned.
ridiculous. But
I'm trying to be
I
ridiculous.
know that's too ridiculous. So, but if you could say, well, if I had worn shoes instead of gone up the ladder without my barefoot, and I wouldn't have slipped, or I shouldn't have been climbing that mountain. How stupid was that? I know I'm not an expert climber. I should have gotten more experience before I climbed that mountain. It's my fault.
Now I have a broken leg.
Yeah. You can't get out of those consequences. You can call yourself a sinner if you want. You can call yourself stupid. You can call yourself even evil if you want. But you can't get out of the consequences. Your leg just has to heal. That's it. So,
And that's going to take several weeks.
yes. But when you climbed up that ladder without shoes on and slipped, in the moment, that's as advanced as you were. You had not had enough experience to realize, I could probably slip and fall. Or even if you did know that, or you've learned that, in that moment, you made a choice to do it. It was your choice. You're responsible for the consequences, but it didn't ding your value. That's the very point I'm getting to. This is what causes all the wars in the world. This is what causes all the horrible things in the world, is we think it dings our value. And then the flip side is, if I can lord myself over you, if you can come to me for the rules, if I can set myself up as God, and you have to come to me because I have the right religion or I have the right laws and rules, I'm better than you, then I get this sense of perfection. Not perfection. Value. I get this sense of value, and I say, everything I think is right. And that's true. It is. It is. It is.
Well,
it is for them.
You're defining narcissism. You're defining those who are the law as an end in itself for them. And whatever they do is okay because they are the center of everything that happens.
Well, that's narcissism because you want to do it without consequences. That's what's so horrible about narcissism. You want to do it without consequences. Sure, what you think in your own head is right. You can't think anything else but what's in your own head. But when you set yourself up as a God, as narcissistic God, you don't want any consequences. See, even Jesus broke rules, okay? They say he was perfect, but he broke rules. How do we put those two together?
Well, the leaders of the Jews hated him for that very thing, but also
So
because he forgave the sinners.
There you go.
They hated him because he forgave the sinners.
The point is that we all say that Jesus was perfect. He never sinned, and yet he broke rules. He was the perfect example of a God within. We break rules all the time. When we speed, we know we shouldn't speed. We know it's breaking a rule. If we get in an accident and we've been speeding, then
there's consequences.
There's consequences. But we're willing to risk those consequences, but you can't get out of the consequences. But it doesn't ding your value. It didn't ding Jesus's value.
Okay, now what's the importance of that? So what? So what that it doesn't ding their value? I think what you're saying is that people who have a very poor sense of self-value then are those who are more prone to hurt somebody else. Is that what you're saying?
They're
because they believe that their value somehow has been diminished, that they're trash, come home with honor. Well, I didn't last night.
Because they're completely separated from their soul.
Okay, now that's the thing I want to get to here is what allowed the Hutus to slaughter the Tutsis?
Well, they explained that in the article quite a bit. And one lady who was especially forgiving or understanding said, I realized that the government taught them to do this, and I realized they didn't know any better.
Yeah.
They didn't recognize the consequences.
But at the time they were doing the slaughter, they thought they were right.
They thought they were right. Now that's a big leap.
It is. It's hard to No, they knew that they shouldn't be doing it. No. That's not what the record says.
A few of them came back and asked for forgiveness.
Yes.
A few of them came back and did this. But the vast majority didn't.
No. Because they couldn't live with what they had done to themselves. How could they possibly go ask somebody else to forgive them?
They got a little more experience. They got a little more understanding. Okay, let's go back to, before we finish his letter, let's go back to a little bit about what causes the most pain.
You mean besides physical pain, besides, some terrible disease or something
What
like
is the thing we are afraid of the most? And I know death.
Well, not being accepted.
Well, yeah.
The things that we do as
Separating.
children, the things we do as adolescents, the things we do as adults to be accepted by our religious leaders, our parents, our siblings, our peer group.
And what causes the most pain? When we are separated. When we're told we're dumb. When we're told we're fat.
We're not enough.
We're not enough. So who had more pain? King David or Job, since we're throwing scriptures around here for a minute, which I hate to do because I feel like it's a God threat. Like, oh, well, because this happened, then you have to believe it because it's in the scriptures. So I'm not saying that, but it's a good example. Most people understand King David committed adultery, and then he had his wife's husband killed in battle.
Yes.
So he committed murder too.
Yes.
So he did both of those things. And then there's Job, who...
The devil and God are battling over who he will,
Yeah, that's the backstory. But he just got hurt. I mean, he got physically hurt. He got separated from his wife.
He lost his wife. He lost his children. He lost all his herds. He lost
Money.
Everything. And he's sitting there in the dust covered with boils.
Okay, so who is in more pain? Now, you want to just not think very deep and go, well, Job, my goodness, he's covered in boils and he's lost everything. But really, who is in more pain.
Well, Job ends up getting 10 times what he had to begin
Well, I'm
with
not
because
talking
of
to
his
that
obedience.
point.
But look at the wailing of David at the loss of his son Absalom and his eventual loss of the kingdom and the loss of everything.
Well,
because he lost himself.
He thought he was damned.
Yes.
He thought he had no value. Job never thought that. Job always thought he was, pretty cool guy. I mean, these are just analogies. Who knows?
Yes.
But King David, that's where the real pain came in, because the biggest lie causes the most pain.
So what is the biggest lie?
That we don't have value, regardless of our behaviors. That's the biggest lie. And that's what we try to throw on other people so they're in pain for what they did.
Okay, now here's the disconnect for a lot of people. When you say that, a lot of people begin to think, well, then they don't have to pay for what they did in order for them to not have to suffer because of what they did. You're not saying that at all. They may still have to go to jail.
That bone still has to heal.
That broken leg still has to have time to heal.
And
they still may suffer the rest of their life, but the onus is on us in understanding why what happened so that our hearts can heal.
Yeah.
And we can understand the beautiful primal value that we were born with.
Yeah, I don't think those women in Rwanda are ever going to not feel the consequences of what happened. Okay? I don't think they ever will. I mean, they may. They may, but I don't think in time. If you live in time in this linear world, I don't think you can get out of those big of consequences. That's why you kind of almost have to die. That's why there's capital punishment for those types of sins. Because to understand that, the biggest pain causes the biggest lie causes the most pain. Their husband and children are really not gone. They're still there. So that's why that separation, that massive separation that we believe.
What do you mean when you say they're still there?
How do you not believe that in this life? That's what I'm talking about, in this life. How do you not believe that your children aren't really gone or your husband is not really gone? You really can't. Okay? So that suffering goes on and on and on and on. So why don't we figure out why that was even caused? Why don't we look at the foundational reason why somebody needed to kill another person? Why the Hutus had to be in power, or they had to be the right ones, or they had to be the better ones, and they had to lord their power, the alpha male type thing. The Muslims, why do they have to do suicide bombings? Why do they have to be right? Why do we have to be right? If If we fix the reason for these things happening, maybe the wars will stop.
That's the whole
Maybe
point
the
we're
wars
coming to.
in our marriages, maybe the wars in our family will stop. Maybe we will have peace when we finally understand that separation is not really, that duality is not really a real place. And that's an ethereal kind of thing we can't really understand in this linear time that we have, but we can in our own hearts. That is the whole message of the atonement, that at one with self. If we truly understood ourselves, and that's hard to do, if we truly can give ourselves grace, and we see ourselves as a tender soul, when you're hurt, then you can go up to the perpetrator and bleed all over the carpet and say, and have enough value to say, I'm hurting. I'm bleeding everywhere. I'm hurting to the point where I just want to lash out at you and hurt you back. Let me explain how much I'm hurting. When you can value your own soul to that point, when you can say, I hurt, I understand myself, I've disappeared, I am me. When you can have that oneness of self, when you can see you, then you can explain to other people, and then they can learn from that, maybe. And maybe they won't do it again. This has such great power. For instance, I've given this example before on the radio show, I don't think on the podcast. Let's say somebody's holding a gun to your head, and you have one chance to say something to them, to try and convince them otherwise. Because people are love. Love is not an option. You have one chance. How many people, when they had a gun held to their head, would sit there and go, you know, you're going to go to hell for this. God's not going to like you. You're a piece of crap. You're an awful person. You're terrible. Why would you even think of killing me? You're sick. And just condemn them and condemn them and condemn them. No, that's not what they do they? When it comes down to the actual moment when you want somebody to hear your soul, you give out your soul. You say, please don't kill me. Please I want you to see my heart. I have children. I have a family that loves me. I've been working for 15 years and you can't take it. I don't want you to take it away from me. That's the only chance. It's a slim one, mind you, because the murderer, or the almost murderer, is so disconnected from their soul. They don't see their value, of course, or they probably wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But that's the only chance you have. That's it. You beg and you plead and you show your soul. You don't condemn. So when people condemn and basically throw a Bible at you and say, you should just forgive, it's the right thing to do. How often does that work? I mean, truly work.
They usually will withdraw from the person who said that to them.
Yeah.
They separate from them.
Yeah.
Because the person who threw the Bible at them doesn't understand their pain.
There's a beautiful book called The Mutant Message Down Under, and in that, it's a lady that goes to Australia and travels with the Aborigines, and they have a very simple life, and they have, a wonderful ideas about certain things, but they don't even understand the concept of guilt, or that your value has been hurt, or that you need to repent, so to speak. But of course, there's consequences. When they talk about when a teenage, usually boy, gets rambunctious or hurts somebody or does something that has, consequences they don't like, they don't sit there and throw Bibles at him or condemn them or tell them they're terrible people. You're awful people. They put them in the middle of a circle and they sing their song. Every one of the Aborigines is born with a song. And as soon as a baby's born, they're given a song and they sing it. And they sing it to them. It's a unique song just for them. Nobody else has it.
You mean the elders sing it to them?
Yeah, or their mother.
Or the rest of the tribe?
Their mother or whoever gives them this song as a baby, and they sing it to them all the time, telling them of their worth, so to speak. I mean, what is more beautiful than a song? It doesn't even need words. So they sing their song to them. Now, that does not get rid of their consequences by any means. But that it's the only way to stop that child from continuing to decimate and hurt other people or to hurt the community. They knew intrinsically this is the way to do it.
To bring them back to themselves.
To bring them back to themselves. So this is what people are fighting me so much about. This is what's so kind of hilarious. That nobody wants anybody else to think they're valuable. Truly.
You know, we can't let them have one up on us.
No. They can't think that they're okay.
Yeah.
That's what James is upset about. That I was telling people that they're okay when they did heinous acts. That's what he's upset about. That very thing, because he can't
see himself as being okay.
He can't see himself as being okay. So he can't understand how anybody else could do something. They know the difference between right and wrong. They just shouldn't have done it.
Yes.
Well, Jesus shouldn't have broken any rules either.
What's the bottom line?
With that logic.
What's the bottom line then of understanding that someone who commits a horrible crime and you are a participant in the courtroom and you hear all the evidence brought against him by the jury, you watch the jury go deliberate, they come back, the person's guilty, they're either going to lose their life or be in prison for the rest of their life. But as you sat there in the courtroom, you heard both sides of the story. You may be able to understand why this fellow did what he did, but he's going to be in prison the rest of his life.
And don't you want closure? You know, people talk about, well, he was killed for what he did to him. You know, the murderer was killed. He capital punishment, and they killed him. And he says, now we have closure. Is that really the kind of closure you want? I still agree with that.
Well, that goes back to the revenge idea you were talking about. We got our revenge.
Yeah.
He's dead.
But wouldn't that person rather have fallen down in front of the murderer and bled in front of him? Wouldn't that person have rather had closure that way? And if the murderer had actually heard
their pain,
can you imagine that kind of closure?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Oh, my God, what have I done?
That is beauty.
They go down on their knees in front of the offended and beg their forgiveness.
Yeah. They still might have to have capital punishment just to keep the laws in the country and those types of things, which we've set up to, scare people away from committing murder. We know it doesn't work. We say that all the time. Capital punishment doesn't scare people from not committing murder. We say it all the time. We know it doesn't work. But regardless, that's the laws we have set up and we've all agreed to and everything like that. But wouldn't you like to fix the problem so there's no more murderers? Wouldn't you like that? And if a person was so in touch with their own soul and the pain they have caused themselves, the consequences they've caused themselves because they've committed certain things, do you think that they would keep on doing it? I mean, isn't that the true way of really solving this problem? Instead of throwing everybody in jail? Instead of, I paid my fine, so I'm fine now. Some old lady got, ripped off of her whole life savings. Well, I paid my debt to society.
I was in jail for 7 years. Yes, I know her. She lost her house. She lost her pension. She lost her retirement. She lost everything. But I paid my 7 years in prison, and so I've done my part.
Wouldn't it be better if that man went and built her a roof?
Yeah.
Once
he got out of prison?
But we can't give that grace to those people. We can't give that grace to Bernie Madoff.
He's an ex-con. He's a bad person.
Yeah, we can't do it because we can't give it to ourselves.
That is probably the most profound thing that you have said.
This is the only reason we have these problems in this world. We can't give somebody forgiveness because we need them to think they're devils still, so they will come to us for approbation. So they will come to us for the 10 Commandments. So we can still set ourselves up as gods and say, our way is the right way. Your way is the wrong way. We can't let people think they're perfect, because then where will we be? See, this is
because we can't see that in ourselves.
This is so diabolical that we have to set ourselves up as a better than somebody else in order to have value. That's what the whole world is set up as. It's just this dog-eat-dog world. I'm better than you. I didn't do this. I mean, I could come up with examples forever.
Yeah, I might have done something bad, but boy, I didn't do what
Boy,
you
I didn't
did.
do that. And I don't understand why she would do that. She's awful.
Yeah.
Because I would never do that.
But given the same sort of
well, you would do what you would do.
You do what you would do. Who knows what you would do?
Who knows? You
Right.
do what you do.
You're
We
right.
all do what we think is right in every given moment. That is the ultimate. And that's why I always say, to do something only because it is the right thing to do, we must first have our value shamed out of us. Do you want a bunch of people out there doing things because it's the right thing to do? I mean, you first got to set down the rules. What's the right thing? And then they got arguments forever. It's the 10 Commandments. No, it's this. No, it's the Quran. No, it's this. But do you really want people doing things because it's the right thing to do? Like he said in his thing, people know the difference between right and wrong. Well, who's right and wrong?
Well, yeah, exactly. And one person's right is another person's wrong.
Yes. So that's an argument that's just distracting. That's all it is. So if we didn't shame the value out of our little children, if we didn't shame it out of our husbands, if we didn't shame their value out of the Muslims, you're just terrible people. If we truly understood our own soul and our own country, and were able to look at ourselves, because we didn't have to be top dog, we might have done something that hurt some other people. We didn't have to always be right, in that we couldn't look at ourselves as, oh no, I did something, oh, it hurt other people, but my value's still intact. I'm going to sing my own song.
Yeah.
Then this would stop. Then all the murderers would stop. The wars would stop. We would live in that millennial peace that everybody always talks about. I want to explain the definition of evil here, because a lot of people say that I don't think there's any evil, and that's totally not true. The definition of evil is when you require of somebody else that which you're not willing to do. I'm not willing to let somebody else kill my child. But you'll go out and kill their child. That's an evil, evil act. And there are definitely evil, evil acts.
And there's a corollary to that,
Okay.
which is giving yourself special privileges, powers, permissions that you refuse to give somebody else.
In other words, saying your way or the highway.
Yeah.
My way's right, your way's wrong, you are less than.
Yes.
You would not ever want anybody doing that to you. You don't want anybody questioning you. You don't want anybody saying what you did, how could you do that? Or what you did was wrong. When in your mind, if you're still standing on that hill, you're going to die on, you're like, no, there was a reason I did it. Let me explain myself. Now, might get to the point where it doesn't matter. The consequences are so horrific that you can explain all day long. You still have to deal with the consequences. But nobody in their own mind thinks they're evil. Nobody does. They may do evil things that they would never want done to them. I mean,
Right.
That's the opposite of the golden rule.
Yes.
Of course. That's the evil. We would never want some of these things to happen to us. But in the moment we did them, we were fully justified in doing that. And you have to go back and listen to the 5-Minute Forgiveness Cure.
Yes, again, referring to podcast 16.
To understand that concept. Okay, there's one more paragraph left.
Yeah, with James's letter here, we can kind of wrap it up with this.
Okay.
He says, I may have gotten off your topic of no such thing as sin, which is not your topic. You never said anything like that.
Never.
With reference to the young girl you were talking about, but you did then tell the story of a cop who shot a guy in the back. In that case, I understand the moment phenomenon, but for every one of these, there are inexcusable actions of sheer horror and violence by others. Are they really doing the best they can in those moments that often carry on for minutes, hours, days? As I've heard Jack say on the radio more than once, something to the effect that every statement can be seen as faulty from some perspective. Mm-hmm. Perhaps I've taken your statement too seriously and assigned it to an absoluteness that you didn't intend. Oh, well, no harm done. I got it off my chest. Peace. Still a fan.
See what he
James.
thinks. He thinks is right.
Yes.
You can't change it. I want to go back to the statement. It says, are they really doing the best they can in those moments that often carry on for minutes, hours, and days? And I want to say, oh, I don't know, James. Are you?
Are you really doing the best you can in the moments that you make the decisions you make?
He's talking about like premeditated stuff. Like, I am going to go do this, and then I'm going to go do it again. And you do it, and, you know, maybe you get away with it. I don't know. And you just go do it again, like gossiping or speeding or committing adultery, or maybe a serial murderer or the pedophile that doesn't stop. Okay, we need to bring this down to something more logical. I did the speeding. That's pretty innocuous. But some sin, quote sin. Oh, I did. I told on myself last time. I said yelling at my kids. Day in, what did he say here? Carry on for minutes, hours and days. Yes. I think I yelled at my kids.
For years.
For years.
Yes.
Premeditated. I mean, whoa, that worked really well last time. I think I'll yell at them again to get in the car faster.
Then after you yelled at them, you kind of wished you hadn't done it. But when you yelled at them, what else? That's all you could do.
Because that was the level of my experience. Yes. I want to express this again and explain this again. If I saw way down the road, if I had all this experience before I yelled at them and saw the damage it did for yelling them, I probably wouldn't. But in the moment, I didn't have that. For instance, I yelled way less at our last child than I did my poor first child, and second, and third, and fourth. I yelled way less. I still yell, I have to tell you that. I still do that. I still don't have a lot of experience, as much experience as, you know, I don't know, somebody else that has more. I still don't understand it as well, or I wouldn't yell at all, because I know there's bad consequences for it. I don't know if it's really premeditated, but everything you do, James, in the minutes, hours, and days that you do it, you think it's the right thing to do, because how could you be smarter than you are? How could you be more advanced? I wish I was more advanced. I wish I had been more advanced when I had my first child at 19. My goodness. But how could I be?
With the way you were raised, with the training you had, and the thoughts that were going through your mind at the time you got married, how could you have done anything else?
Yes. And so going back to his letter where he said, you know, if you go back and these people get off from the consequences because they show their
contrition.
No, they show the bad youth they had. That
yes.
You know, I mean, you go look at Hitler's youth and, you know, you kind of get a little understanding.
Hitler got beat up by his father every day.
But still, we'd all collectively couldn't go bleed in front of Hitler. You see? So we do the most evil thing that we would never want to happen to us. We condemn Hitler's value. He's probably the most vilified person on earth, you know. Oh, that was as bad as Hitler, or you know. But that's his value we're talking about. We're putting together what he did, which was heinous, that the consequences go on for generations. forever. Heinous, heinous, heinous and consequences. But we condemn his value. And that's the way we keep people in control, is by condemning their value. That's why churches have so much power, because they're able to condemn you after this life.
Yes.
Not even in this life. But.
And to the people who mean something to us because we want their approbation, when they condemn us, we'll do anything we have to do to get their validation
like
down
our
the
parents.
road. Like our parents.
Yeah.
If
it's done for that reason. If a parent comes up to them and says, look at the damage you did. Look what happened. Look at all this that happened. And now daddy has to work super hard to pay for the piano you decided to pour water into. Let me show you the consequences. Let's go on and on and on. Look how we have to pay this painter to come in and fix the wall that you sprayed paint all over. Look at the consequences of you getting this girl pregnant, not thinking of her heart at all and her future, nor your future. Look at the consequences of doing drugs. Let me show you the consequences. I'm telling you, Jack, I'm the one that's all about consequences. I'm the one that's always saying, look at the blood on the wall. Look what will happen if you get hooked on cocaine. Let me show you these meth addicts. Let me show you the consequences, but never, never have you heard me ding their value. Never have you heard me tell my children, you're not worth a blankety blank thing.
Yeah, you're not enough.
Because you
Look
did
at what
this.
you've done here. You're less than what you should be. You've never said anything like that.
Because how do you live a life with no honor?
Yes.
You go out and commit wars. You go out and commit larceny. You go out and lord yourself over your wife. Or you lord yourself over your children or over your coworker. I'm better than he is. That's how you live a life with no honor. It's the devil's plan. It is the worst hell on earth. And that's what we've created. Now, I'd like to wrap this around into health because this is a health show. But I think it's emotional health, and I don't think you know how to get yourself healthy.
Well, there's a psychosomatic aspect to the human body that when we have serious problems with our own self-image, it manifests itself viscerally in organ dysfunction. This has been researched over and over again.
That's Anita Moorjani in, what's the name of her book?
Dying to Be Me.
Dying to Be Me. That's her whole premise in Dying to Be Me, is that she was trying to find her value by her behaviors for years and years and years. And she found on the other side that she was magnificent. And the other thing she said that was so poignant and so right on is she said, I had no idea I had so much power to give myself cancer. Look at the power I had. And then she came back and proved it because she came back and had the power to cure her cancer. Now, that's a huge leap, and you'll just have to read her book to understand that. But she found her magnificence. And do you think she's going to go out and hurt other people?
She's going out teaching other people their magnificence.
Yeah. That's what would happen to this world. And we'd be able to hear our soul. We'd be able to hear what we crave. We'd be able to, man, I have enough value to say, I want a steak tonight, Jack. I literally have girls that call me. This one little girl, I have to tell the story really quick. She was newly married. She had a little boy. She was like 23 years old, and she came to me bawling. She didn't stop bawling through the whole thing. She said, my husband and my therapist and my doctor all say I'm selfish because I won't go on Prozac. Because I've had such postpartum depression, and I'm so depressed, and if my little boy gets a runny nose, I go into a catatonic state for 2 days, afraid he will die. Okay? I didn't do much with her as far as the 5-minute forgiveness cure, but I did give her some stuff. And she said, I'm here. And I said, sweetie, you just need your endocrine system fed. You've been feeding it sugar and all kinds of other horrible things. And I did. And I helped her. She didn't have a lot of money. I didn't do a lot for her, but she has stayed in contact with me for, I guess, 5 years now. She just texted me yesterday. She texts me about every 6 months, just a little, hey, I'm having this problem. What do you think? So I'll give her recommendations, and she's always like, well, I don't, no, I can't. No, I don't think I'll ask my husband that. No, I don't. Can I just get 2 things? Will that get me better, Mary, if I just get 2 supplements instead of these 6 that you're recommending? I mean, it's that kind of thing. I just want to grab her and just put her face in my hand and say, you are so valuable. Do you know what it will fix in the long run? Where you won't be a bother to your husband or to your family or to your bank account if you'll fix this now. But I can't get that through to her. That's a lot of the problem here, at least in Utah where we are. The people just cannot validate themselves enough to go, you know what? I'm worth it. I have another lady who says that to me all the time, and she's gotten so much better. In fact, we put her charts up on the wall. Her husband thinks what we do is witchcraft. I mean, literally, he thinks it's ridiculous.
Well, he's not going to validate it.
No, and that's the whole point.
Yep.
If I told that story, it's all about him being the big guy and him not validating her in this. I see that dynamic all the time in married couples. They just won't let the other person be right. But anyway, she went ahead with it. She's like, I'm worth it. I'm worth it. And I've been taking care of her since 2004. And she just dances in the chair. It's a beautiful thing. Do you see the pain she got rid of? But there's another word for that. There's the pain that she escaped from, that she did not have to experience. The breakdown of her whole body. Because she validated herself. She was valuable. So if we can do that with our own souls, can you see the peace, let alone the health, the physical health of everybody, but just the peace. And that's all they really want. That's all we want. That's all I want is that peace. But there is still consequences. That's what you need to get across. And maybe you'll take better care of yourself if you understand the consequences better. If you understand, I will break my husband's heart if I commit adultery on him. I will shatter him into 1,000,000 pieces. I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to feel that pain myself. I want to be kinder to myself. I would never want to see that. When you can see the true consequences for your actions, then if you have enough love of self and don't want to go through that, then it might stop the wars. It might stop the horror.
I'd like to add.
I don't know what else would work,
but I can't possibly add anything.
Tell me something that will work. Throwing a Bible at you, condemning you, telling somebody you're a terrible person.
Genocide. Get rid of them all. Just kill them. Bomb them all.
You won't come back with honor. God won't love you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very powerful, controlling statement among the religious.
Yeah.
God will withhold his love from you.
The God I worship would be one that would know me naked. Everything I've done, everything emotionally, everything, and still love me. Oh, isn't that a God you want to worship? Isn't that truly the one that we love? The one we're drawn to? Somebody that knows all our warts and foibles and horror.
And our dark hidden sins.
And still loves us. Doesn't that just make you, because we all want to be one. That's where we're all moving to. Everything is. This table is degenerating into the oneness. We're all going back to the oneness, and we're drawn to that. We're drawn to being naked and transparent in front of everybody. Isn't that the most peaceful place to be? To have your value completely perfect. And that's where we are. That's where we truly are. That is the true state of ourselves. That is the atonement in a nutshell. At-one-ment.
Well, I think you've explained it.
If not, I'll do it again. Maybe we'll interview somebody.
Yeah.
It's a hard concept to get across. We've been taught the exact opposite, that the things we do affect our value. We've been taught that our whole life from everybody, not just church, not just family, not just, everybody. So it's a hard concept to get.
So, James, in conclusion here, there are consequences for breaking the law. There's consequences for hurting people.
And there's people that do very, very evil things.
Yes, there are.
As we taught our son, there are no bad people. There are mean people, and there are nice people. Make your friends the nice people. Be nice to yourself and hang around nice people.
Yes.
But there's no bad people.
I don't know what to say at this point.
Well,
I am moved.
the perfect time to teach people of their perfect value and to face the consequences of their actions is after they've sinned.
Well, we can beat them up and warn them about what'll happen if they do sin. But like you say, the best time is after the experience.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's the exact time we destroy their value. we dictate how they can crawl out of their pit of guilt and despair, in order to regain their value through, these step-by-step performances.
Oh, yes. You do this, then you can do this, and then if you'll do this,
then I'll accept you.
Then I'll accept you.
And that just further retards their understanding of their soul and their innate
because
value.
we're teaching them again that their value is based on their performance. Since they lost all their value by a bad performance, if you will do all these good performances, this penance, then perhaps you can be a good person again.
Yeah, because we want people who do bad things to be declared bad people, rather than helping them see their value apart from their actions. People will still suffer the consequences of their behavior, but we can help them see their value from their behavior. We can help them heal, and as well as heal those that they hurt.
Yeah. So you can, on the one hand, help them to understand the eternal value that they probably lost sight of, that allowed them to do the bad behavior. Mm-hmm. But because they don't understand the first principle, they get caught up in the second one, and then they go down this cycle. Well, I'm just not a very good person, which will breed more bad behavior.
Yeah. We're magnificent beings. And we don't see that because we equate our value with our behaviors. So if we can see the magnificence of our own existence, that we're magnificent just because we exist, then we can see who and what we are in a different light and be less inclined to behave, in a way that hurts people.
This is a quote.
Yeah, I really like this. I think I snagged this off of Facebook. If I would have known that the only thing that would bring me to a place of forgiveness, adventure, and new opportunities and acceptance was self-love, I would have granted myself that moment long ago.
That moment is now.
You can do it right now. And then the last slide here is a really wonderful human being. I wish the whole world knew who she was. She just posted this on her Facebook one day, and I think it's so beautiful. She said, I was just pondering the beauty of being with, of sitting silently with someone who is hurting, of bearing witness or paying attention in the field of love, not fixing or hoping or knowing, just allowing that person to feel your care. Only those filled with self-love have the capacity to do it. It is so profound and at the same time so simple. When I go into this feeling of this, it literally swells my heart. I am carried away on a current of what it means to be truly human. I am moved beyond words.
So how many times has, in your short 5 decades of life, someone sat down with you when you were hurting, and rather than being with the hurt to show that you cared for no other reason than to share the hurt, how many times does that happen as opposed to telling you how to get out of the pain?
Yeah, the fixing, the hoping, or the knowing. That's the real big one. I know how to fix this.
Let's fix this. Let's fix this right now. You've gone on in this pain long enough. It's time to fix it.
Yeah.
Rather than being in the pain with you and sharing it and letting you express what your heart's deepest feelings really are without judgment or control.
Well, they can't because they're filled with all kinds of judgments of themselves.
Yeah.
So only those filled with self-love have the capacity to do that, to where they don't need to go change the world. They can just listen.
All right, let's recap. There, see, I'm fixing it because this is an hour and a half long. And here I am trying to
Well, here's
fix
the
it.
ultimate thing to the answer to podcast number 16, today's podcast number 96, is that there are no consequences to your value, only consequences to your actions.
That's the best summary we could come up with here.
Yeah. Your value is perfect and intact. It's as clean as the driven snow.
You may be paying for the next 20 years for what you did, but your value is still intact.
Because we live in this linear time. If you go to the other side, there's no more linear anything, and your value is there. So you're okay, you're safe, just be, and be gentle, kind, and tender to yourself. And the time to do that the most is when you have been really, really mean to yourself.
Yeah, I've heard you say this to our son Rourke a number of times. When you saw him, even in a small degree, demonstrating some revengeful feeling or the bordering with some meanness, you would sit down with him. I remember this, and you'd say, and this is, this was the time to be gentle, kind, and tender. We think of after the fact. Mm-hmm. Oh, he hurt me, and I want to go kill him. And we think, well, now let's be kind and gentle and tender.
To other people. No, this is the time to be gentle to yourself.
To be gentle to yourself. When the meanness wells up inside of you.
When you
the vengefulness wells up inside of you.
You forgive yourself. You go back and you understand what you did in the moment. Whether it was hurting somebody else, when it happened, you think of your intelligence, you think of your experience, and you think, okay, that was all I could do in that moment. That's how you become gentle, kind, and tender to yourself. And you forgive yourself by understanding it was all you could do. And when you do that, you understand everybody else, and it's all they could have done in the moment. And forgiveness is just there, as love is just there. It's not something you have to force yourself to do or go get or decide.
Once the understanding takes place, so that all of the vindictiveness and the judgment and the separation, the objectivity and everything else can be pushed aside, lying underneath of it is nothing but love.
Mm-hmm. Love of self and love of everybody else. Because love is not an option.
All right, we're going to close this up.
Yeah. Once you take our free symptom survey, go to our website, forbiddendoctor.com, and take our survey so you can get inside after you get your username and password, and you can see your personalized protocol sitting there. And this will save you money in the long run because you're not buying supplements you don't need. So once you become a patient, you can get into the inner sanctum of our website and see everything we have there. You can search for any kind of symptom, depression. I would recommend searching for gaps and gut health and hormone health and all of those things that will help you on a foundational level. And then up pops a protocol for things that will help you support your body foundationally.
So the statements above made about specific products have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease, including depression.
Although we didn't talk much about
supplements
in this podcast.
But all information provided on or any information contained on or in any product label, packaging, or this webinar, or any of our other webinars, is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professionals, such as your local therapist, psychologist, counselor, whatever else.
That goes with this podcast better. Here's our contact information. You can email us, text us, or call us. You can even come in and see us. There's our address right there. And we would love to get some letters from you, and maybe we'll talk about those on the air, because these types of podcasts always generate a lot of listener.
A lot of angst, but a lot of freedom and a lot of love.
Sometimes.
All right. I can't tell you how moved I am by this podcast, Mary, listening to you.
It's just where we're going to rip a hole in the universe and go into another universe and find true healing, true emotional healing, true physical healing, and bring it back to this side and get rid of all the other Band-Aids that we use all the time, and managing symptoms and forcing people to forgive and forcing people to be nice and then killing everybody that hurts us. This is the foundational healing that I would like to see everywhere.
We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.